Man, I want you to know something. I am so excited about this series we're starting called I Found Life. And over the next few weeks, we're going to build into something epic. And I hesitate to even really mention some of what I dream. Do you ever feel like that? Like you just hesitate to mention or to talk out loud about what you're dreaming about, what you're thinking about? Man, I am so looking forward to the next 4 weeks. You do not want to miss not one of these. Now, there's some good stuff you can always catch up online on what we say, but you can't experience what we're going to experience in the next few days, in the next few weeks together. You can't experience it again online. It's something that you have to be here for, and you'll understand more about that stuff later. Now, listen, I'm getting older, okay? So yesterday, my mother-in-law says we're going to go on a cruise at some point here, like real soon, and my mother-in-law was talking about this lady who fell off of her cruise, like the balcony of her cruise thing. And she's like, well, she was an older lady, my mother-in-law said. She's 52. And I'm like, that's like 7 years from now. That's not a long time. You know what I'm saying? So and I realized the other day that the older I get, the looser the relationship happens with these, okay? Like, I don't know what the deal is, but like when I come in the door, I used to never, ever lose my keys. Now I'm like, babe, where's my keys? Have you seen my keys? And I feel, and I'm terrified of this. We'll edit this out. I feel like I'm scared I'm turning into my dad. My dad loses, I'm not kidding, he loses everything. I bet they have 20 copies of their key to their car because my dad loses them and they're all over the place. I mean, you could literally just go in and search any drawer and probably find 6 of them, but he loses them all the time. And the older I get, the more I lose those all the time. But this thing has rescued me a number of times because I have this cool little app, on my phone where I can open up this app and I can make my keys beep, which is amazing, Like I'm like, what did we do before this? I know what we did. We turned into my dad. So like, I bought one of these for my dad and he couldn't figure out how to set it up on his email and he made a mess out of something and forgot his password. So I set it up on my email. And so now every single time he loses his keys, it emails me and tells me that he lost his keys, which is I'm not kidding, 3 times a day. And just ask me any day, I can show you the last 5 emails. So, but it's pretty crazy how this stuff works. I mean, the longer we go, that we start to lose things more, and then we need like devices to rescue us. And this thing has rescued me a dozen times. Now, when I was thinking about it this week, and I told you on Thursday night at the night of worship, which was killer, was it not? It was awesome. You can applaud because that was way better than that. It was so good just to be a part of it and be together and like it was just great. It was family, and it was really, really cool. It's raining outside. People who sit over here, I'm very sorry. It's going to leak on you. All right, so anyhow, it's a giant trash bag stretched over a big thing. So like, what do you want? Okay, so here's the deal. I was here on Thursday night, and I told you I've been in this kick lately about looking stuff up in the dictionary. And so, words, I'm like, what's going on? So I was looking up rescue because I was thinking of this word. God just keeps bringing this word to the surface for me related to this series, related to probably the next couple of years, or even maybe the general future of Journey. This word rescue just keeps coming back to the center, rescue, all the time. So I looked it up in the dictionary, and I expected profound and amazing and big and just epic, right? And what I got was this one: to free someone from confinement, danger, or evil. Which sounds good. It's not bad. I'm sure it's sufficient. They are smart. They wrote the dictionary, for crying out loud. So they can't be bad, but like that sounds great unless you're the one in need of freedom from confinement or danger or evil, Like then all of a sudden I want a little more urgency in the deal, right? Like I don't want you to to release someone or to free someone from, from confinement or danger or evil. It just sounds, I don't know, corporate. If I've been kidnapped, they'll bring me back in a minute. Let's use somebody else. Like if somebody else were kidnapped, somebody desirable, right? Like you were kidnapped and taken away. Like I don't want you to go, well, I'd like to free them from confinement, and I don't want them to think about it. I want them to be like, let's get it on, right? When I think of rescue, I think of like epic rescue. I think of like animal rescue people. It amazes me. Somebody who comes in, look at this person. This is like somebody who sees a dog or even a cat, I'll allow it, right? So you see an animal that is hurting and goes, look, we don't have time to mess around with this. We've got to get this thing cared for. We've got to get medicine. We've got to get nourishment. We've got to get shelter. We've got to take care of it. And people who let their dogs and cats and animals look like that should, there's a special place in hell. Okay, so anyways, but I think of people like this. I think of medics, like of combat medics. I mean, there's probably several in this room who've spent time caring for the wounded on a battlefield. There's a sense of urgency that comes with that. That's not a corporate definition, right? This isn't some like sterile place to free someone from confinement or danger or evil, right? This is a guy who's running in battle, like wounds and bullets and stuff flying overhead, and he's triaging a wound and dragging a guy. There's an urgency to this kind of rescue, and that is a big deal. I think of firemen who are rushing into the building when everybody else is rushing out, I think there's a sense of urgency to that kind of effort. There's a sense of urgency to the way that EMTs arrive on a scene. They don't get on the scene, put the ambulance in park and get out, stretch and, get their back ready and go over and make a phone call, return a couple texts, and then go free someone from confinement or danger or evil. No, they rush around the back and they drop stuff on the ground and they tell people to get back. There's nothing, they do stuff and they fix things. That's what rescue is all about. I don't know about you, but I always think that rescue carries a sense of urgency. Rescue should always carry a sense of urgency. The gospel is a story of rescue, and it carries a sense of urgency. When God approaches the idea of rescue, he doesn't do it, I want to free some people from confinement or danger or evil. I mean, he's not white bread about the deal. I mean, he's urgent. I mean, when God talks about rescue, it feels just a little bit more like this scene.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you are looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. If you let my daughter go now, that'll be the end of it. I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you, and I will kill you.
Good luck.
A friend gave this to me. It's Albanian. You mind translating it?
Ne thought. Good luck. Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
You don't remember me. We spoke on the phone 2 days ago. I told you I would find you.
You wanted to see the rest of the clip. I know. That is one bad apple right there. Like that movie. Whew. Anyways, if you haven't seen the movie Taken, the last 2 minutes didn't make any sense to you. But man, when we talk about rescue, when I don't talk about helping somebody out or fixing something or coming to the aid of someone, when I talk about rescue, I think there's a sense of urgency, and that's the way the Gospels treat rescue. When God's in the business of rescue, that's his deal. Now, here's the problem most of the time. When we talk about God, we talk about this R word, religion, right? And we talk about like how this is kind of an observance of something that has happened, and we go and we do certain things, and we jump through hoops, and we act one way, and we don't act another way. But there's very often more religious than anything else. And then, as Christians now, right, we're followers of Jesus. We just say it's not about a religion. It's about a relationship, right? We like those R words. I love R words. I like words that just start with the same letter, to be honest with you. I like everything to line up. But like we think like it's not a religion, it's a relationship. It's a relationship, which still sounds like it doesn't really have any urgency, does it, right? But there's an urgency that comes with the gospel. There's a matter of rescue that matters. It's not just a religion. It's not just a relationship. It's a rescue mission. You and I are called to something great. And in the book of Luke, he tells these 3 parables that Jesus uses to relate to people. Then he says to them, like, this is how these things unfold. We're going to talk about these 3 stories, these 3 parables over the next 3 weeks. And I want you to think in terms of what God has rescued you from. What's your story? What have you found? That's the question you really need to answer. So today, as we're kind of walking through this stuff, and we're talking about the lost sheep today, I want you to get into your mind, if you had to complete this sentence, I found blank at Journey, or I found blank in my relationship with Jesus, what would you fill the blank in with? The story in Luke chapter 15 is pretty powerful. It says this: by that time, a lot of men and women were doubtful reputation were hanging around Jesus. Listen intently. Listen what he says. By this time, a lot of men and women with doubtful reputations were hanging around Jesus. Don't you love the way the Bible says that? Like, with doubtful reputations. Have you ever gossiped about anybody in your life? Do you ever say, she has a doubtful reputation, right? He has a doubtful reputation. Like, if that's not Christianese, I don't know what is, right? I have men and women with a doubtful reputation were hanging around Jesus, listening intently. The Pharisees and religious scholars were not pleased. Really. Never seen Christians act like that. So not at all pleased. They growled, he takes in sinners and eats meals with them, treating them like old friends. Let me just pause for 1 second. Have you ever been, show of hands, this is not like, okay, really, this is audience participation. How many of you have ever heard of or been on the website Topics? I've been on it. Come on, you give back. Don't lie. You've done it. Some of you are like, I don't know what that is. But when you find out, you're going to be like, imagine, never mind, just forget it. Okay, it's unbelievable. So it's like this unfiltered, right? Like posting board where they'll let anybody anonymously post. Imagine how stupid this can get, right? It's hilarious. It's like, it's a lesson in human psychology. It's hilarious sometimes. We get a lot of grief as a church because of exactly this sort of thing. Like, by this time, a lot of men and women with doubtful reputations were hanging around Journey, right? Like, that's how this verse would read. And people were like, I saw so-and-so go into that church, and I know that I went there, and they had these people were over there, and they were talking to them like what? Like they were old friends, right? Like, this could literally be a topics post about Journey Church. And I love that about our church. I love that we love people in whatever state they are, whether they're authentic about their brokenness and everybody knows then they have a doubtful reputation because of it, or they're upstanding, decent people who aren't open about their brokenness and nobody knows about their doubtful reputation. The truth is, every single one of us are broken, and we all are in need of someone who loves us, and that person can be exemplified in us. We love people, but that person that we need to experience their love is Jesus. And Jesus, this is what I love about it. When Jesus approaches rescue, he doesn't kind of just generally go in, well, I got some stuff to do. Folks, could you guys sit down? Your doubtful reputation. I need to free you from danger and evil and stuff like this, right? No, he risks everything for the purpose of rescue. He risks his reputation. All the religious leaders looked at him and says, man, there's no way this is the Messiah. There's no way this guy's from God. This is terrible the way this is. Because here's the deal. Like we have this idea in our heads that it's all about like the way things feel and look and all that stuff. But Jesus goes in and he's like, no, there's something seriously wrong. I'm hanging out with these broken people, and the people who think they've got it all together, they're over here. Jesus risks his reputation in the name of rescue. Rescue will always cost your reputation. I just want you to think about something. Who in your life needs rescue? Like it might be their marriage, it might be their hope, might be their story, it might be their relationship with Jesus. You know people who Sunday morning rolls around, and it's not a question of when they're going to church. It's a matter of if they're going to church, right? And they've been damaged. We've all had this story, right? They've been damaged by the church. There's a story in the background when they went through a divorce, and then somebody all had an opinion about it, and they had to tell everybody, and then they were treated in a way that was like super mean, and people would look down on them like their stuff doesn't stink, and all this kind of stuff keeps going on, right? And they didn't want to risk a reputation of associating with this person, and so they pushed them away, and then your friend, your uncle, your brother, your sister got hurt. Rescue will always risk your reputation. Caring about people risks your reputation. I love it when people say, Journey Church is a church full of messed up people, man. Journey Church is a church for rejects. I love that. You know why? Because I'm a reject, right? I'm a reject. I love the fact that I mess up and walk away, and that I'm broken, and that I'm honest about it. And I love coming to a bunch of places where we treat each other like old friends and love each other. That you know people who need that love. You know people who need that love. It's scary though, isn't it? When you start thinking about telling them about it, you're like, okay, wait a second. I want to, but man, they're going to lump me in with all the other Christians, you know, and you start hearing that, right? You start hearing, oh man, I'd love to do that, but man, it's so awkward to just start the conversation. I don't even know where to begin with it. It's so awkward to do this. You just don't know how to do that stuff. Who do you think puts those thoughts in your head? Who do you think puts the reputation thought or the fear thought? Who do you think places that there? Who do you think tempts you with that? There's a kind of a showing my hand, right? I mean, that's not something that God does. Jesus risks everything for rescue. And so he tells this story, because I love that. I mean, I could read this over and over again. All these people who've you know, like hung around him and they growled. He takes it in sinners and eats meals with them, treating like old friends. Verse 3 and 4 says this, their grumbling triggered this story. I love that. He's like, it triggers in Jesus this. I got a story about that. Listen, he says, suppose one of you had 100 sheep and lost one. Wouldn't you leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the lost one until you found it? If you had 100 sheep and you lost one, wouldn't you just leave the 99 where they were and go find it? Why would you do that? Why would you leave 99 who are good followers and going to stick with you to go find the one, right? Why would you do that? I mean, there's a ton of risk in that. Why would you do that? It's the same question we got. Why would you move across the country to start a new church? Because people need rescue, right? And the best way to reach new people is to start new churches. Because what happens, right? When you came to Journey, then you walk in, you're like, they haven't been there that long, so there can't be those people who've been here for 50 years, and those because the church hadn't been there 50 years. We always said we've never done it that way because we always said that before. Like when we changed them, we're like, we can't ever say we've never done it that way before because we've just never done it. Like we don't know. We don't have all this story. We don't have all this history. So it's easy to walk into a new church. It's easy to get connected here. Because you love people and you're new and they're new and everybody's new and we're growing and all this great stuff happens, right? It's easy to do that, but leaving that to start something, leaving that to go and reach that next person, it's so easy to stay where we are, isn't it? It's easy just to get up and go to church and go home and enjoy it and laugh and, sing some songs we like, go home and come back and do it again. And it's easy to read your Bible during the week. It's easier to do that than it is to step out of your comfort zone and ask that person at work and go, hey, you know what? Why don't you come to hang out with me at church? It's hard because you take this idea of like even Easter, that 87% across the country, 87% of people when asked to attend an Easter service with you will respond favorably. That's 87% of people, including those who live in like San Francisco and New York and places where they might be a little more antagonistic. In Jackson, Tennessee, I don't think anybody's going to get mad at you because you ask them to come to Easter services with you, unless they go to another church or they're a pastor at another church. Then they might be a little weird about it. But if you know somebody who doesn't go to church and you walk up and say, hey, what do you think about coming to Easter with me, at Journey? 87% of people across the country would respond favorably to it. So what do you imagine they would do if you just said, hey, it's been big for me. But here's the problem. Most of the time when we ask people to go to church, we're like, hey, come to church with me. And they're like, dude, church, sleep, church. Which one would you choose? I'm going with sleep, to be totally honest with you. I can sleep at church or I can sleep at home. Like, I'd rather sleep in my bed. It's more comfortable than like sitting in a chair and their mind's a pew, right? And like going to church, it doesn't make a ton of sense. But understand something. Rescue will always take risk. It's never going to be simple. It's never going to be easy because it's rescue, for crying out loud. Ask a fireman what rescue is like. Is it easy? Is it riskless? You know, that's what my problem is when it comes to that definition, to free somebody from confinement or danger or evil. It's not that it's a bad definition. It just seems incomplete, doesn't it? Because when we're about rescue, it always takes risk. Jesus leaves the 99 and goes out into the wilderness to find the one sheep that's lost. Now, we always think about the 99, okay? Let's leave the 99 for a minute. Let's just assume they're okay because there's safety in some numbers or something. But not only are we thinking about the one that's lost, but think about the risk to the shepherd. He's out there all by himself, wandering around looking for this stupid sheep that wandered off, right? And all the lions and tigers and bears, oh my, there's tons of them, right? Like they could be out there and doing whatever they want to do, and they could sneak up on him just as easily as they could sneak up on the sheep, or he could trigger something or fall or hurt himself, all the risk that happens. But he leaves the 99 and goes to search for the other one in the darkness. I mean, isn't that an assumption here? I mean, he would have seen the one that wandered away in the light and gone, hey, come back over here, right? He goes to count them when he rallies them up and goes, hey, one of them is missing in the darkness somewhere, wandered off. Walking into the darkness always carries risk. But that's right, carries risk. And the verse goes on, it says this, when he found, you can be sure that it would you could put it across his shoulders rejoicing. And when you got home, call all your friends and neighbors saying, celebrate with me, I found my lost sheep. Count on it. There's more joy in heaven over one sinner rescued than over the 99 good people in no need of rescue. There's more rejoicing over one sinner rescued than over the 99 who didn't need it. You know, sometimes when we talk about this stuff, I always kind of feel a little nervous, to be honest, when I talk about reaching people. Because in our world today, there's a pretty jacked up thing that's happening on a platform like this one. Maybe not like this one. This one's not very tall. So, and you know, when you get all the lights on you and you start talking about leading a church and you do all this stuff, there's a pretty unhealthy culture around churches that grow sometimes. And I got to be honest with you, I know a lot of these guys really well, and there's some pretty jacked up things going on in hearts when we're only built by like, I got to have a bigger church. It's got to grow. It's got to grow. It's got to grow. So I always get nervous talking about this stuff. But I love the way this passage reminds my heart of what's important here. He says, I'll leave and find the one. And there's more rejoicing over that one returning than there were over just the 99 who didn't need it. That one who's rescued matters. You know, sometimes we count, and I don't often talk about the numbers of Journey Church out loud. I don't normally post them on Facebook and be like, hey, we had this many people today. Hey, we had this many people today. Sometimes it's because I don't want us to be kind of numbers oriented. It'll always matter to us that Journey Church is growing because of this passage and ones like it throughout all of the Bible. Because every single number matters to God. Every person matters to Jesus. So we count things because people count. And then that's important for us to understand. We count people because people count. Every number is a story. And every story matters to God. So when Jesus says, like, the going rejoicing because he brought back that one, understand that risk always happens. Reputation is always risk. Risk is part of rescue, but here's the deal. You and I have this issue that we have to face, that there is one out there for whom Jesus himself wants to rejoice. Isn't that kind of weird to think of? That you and I have the influence. God has invested it in us. You and I have the influence. There is someone out there, right, that's not here today, that you've been thinking about, that you've considered. There's one of them for which Jesus wants to rescue, and he's depending on you. One of them for whom Jesus wants to rejoice, and he's depending on you. That's really the biggest piece of it, is that rescue leads to rejoicing. It's not present in the definition, I know, because all we're doing is freeing people from confinement, danger, or evil, right? But when we start to understand that rescue carries urgency, rescue carries risk, winds up being a rejoicing, it starts taking on a whole new visceral meaning inside of this word rescue. You and I are rescuers. You and I are not called to a mission of corporate growth or something like that, right? You and I are called to rush in and storm the gates of hell with squirt guns and take as many prisoners as possible, right? That's our role. God's called us to a place of risk. By all means, it's risky. You risk your reputation, you risk your relationships, you risk all the people talking about you. By all means, it's risky. But it also gives us an opportunity to see Jesus and the angels rejoicing for that one sinner who is rescued. So here's the thing. This is the bottom line for today. God puts the you in rescue. God puts the you in rescue. It's our responsibility. Matthew chapter 28, 19 and 20. Jesus is getting ready to take off. It's his last words. And he says, hey, I go, surely I'll be with you always, even till the end of the age. But before he says that, right, he says, go into all the world and teach the gospel, make disciples, bring them in, right? And baptize them and help them to obey all the things that I've commanded you to do. He gives this responsibility to us. I don't know why, right? To be honest, there have been a number of times where I'm like, God, I'm thankful for your love. I question your taste, but I'm thankful for your love, right? I don't understand why you love me. I don't understand why you give this to me. Why don't you do all the mission reaching and I'll just cheer you along? But he doesn't do that. He gives it to us. He puts the you in rescue. You and I have a responsibility, but yet a mission, a calling, a pleasure to be the hands and feet of Jesus. So let me just mention this to you. If you're here today and you're that lost sheep, right? You came in the door and you're like, man, I'm not sure about this whole deal. I don't know about this Jesus stuff. Maybe I've pushed away and wandered off. I want you to know two things. One, this is a safe place for you. We love you. We're thrilled you're here, and we will never force anything on you. We are here to help you take your next step. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to push it on you or have an agenda. We just want to help you. But if you're here today and you used to be the lost sheep, and you were found. The shepherd left the 99 and came and found you, right? And then you got inside and you're like, hey guys, I'm here. You can shut the door, right? And we're good now. We don't have to worry about it. But someone cared about Jesus rejoicing enough to come and find you. What about going and finding somebody? What about your investment in people? So let me just challenge you. We're going to have I'm going to give you a tool that we're invested heavily in, helping people take their next step toward Jesus, because that's who we are as a church. We as a church exist to help people take their next step toward Jesus. So in a minute, our section hosts are going to do something in just a minute, and they're getting some stuff ready. They're going to hand you a card in a minute. And it looks a little bit like this invitation card that you're going to see on the screen, okay? And it's a really simple card. And it's in this packet and kind of jammed in there. But it says, I found. I mean, it's real simple. It looks just like that one. It's just a regular card. And it says, I found, with a big blank. And on the back, there's a bunch of information about when our Easter services are. We just want you to fill in the blank. Because I asked you at the very beginning, at the top of the talk, we started talking, what did I find at Journey Church? You're like, oh, man, I don't have a marker. That's okay. They're going to give you a marker. So you give you a marker and a card, okay? And you're going to write, I found. What did you find? And you saw some of them out in the lobby, right? I found what? What did I find? We'll talk about that in a minute. You're going to fill that in, what you found at Journey Church. Because there's no more compelling story than your story. Your friends care about your story and what you found. When they find out what you found, it will matter to them. So fill out what you found at Journey. And then they're going to give you this little cool thing, which is a cool little device. And you say you lost your keys, we've all had that problem where you've lost your keys and you can't find them. And so all they'll do is just install a little app, and then you can find your keys. You just click the button and say, hear that? Pretty cool. Or if you can't find your phone, that's my favorite part, when I can't find my phone. That's pretty neat, huh? Okay, so here's the deal. Here's the thing. So what we're gonna do is in a second, is that thing still playing? Stop. Okay, all right. So here's the deal. We want to invest in you, being able to invest people. So what have you found at Journey? And help people find their stuff. This is not a tracker, okay? Don't use the word tracker, okay? We tested this with a couple of folks, right? We tested this with a couple of people, and they said people wanted to know, are we tracking them? Don't call this a tracker, okay? This is a key finder, okay? All right, so the section hosts are gonna hand this out to you right now. So you guys stand it up. We got a bunch of section hosts. Take a packet from them. There are about 80% of you will get a marker directly. You'll have to share it, okay? So here's the deal. What you need to do is take that card out and begin to fill out that word. 1 word, 2 words. Don't write a novel on there. You're not writing your life change story. I was born a poor black child, dropped on my head, right? Like, that's not your story. Just write, I found life, right? I found this. I'm gonna read you about 30 words. So don't worry about the tracker right now. I'll explain it in a minute. So I'm gonna read you about 30 words that might give you a starter, because I know putting pressure on you is not helping, right? I found Jesus. I found family. I found faith, healing, restoration. I found grace, acceptance. I found love, life, victory. You're not writing all 30 of these, right? Okay. Okay. You pick out which one works for you. Some of you are going to need a do-over card. I found freedom. I found confidence. I found discipleship. I found change. I found truth. I found value, story, significance, mission, life. I found connection. I found peace, meaning, purpose. I found forgiveness, transformation. I found contentment. I found patience. I found renewal. Write your word. Just one word. It doesn't have to be one of those words. Write a new word, right? Whatever makes sense to you. When you're done with your marker, hand it back to your section host real quick, okay? When you're done with your marker, so that they can juggle those around, because there's about 20% of you don't have one. Probably should have just fixed it, but whatever. Anyway, but just write down your word, because there's nothing more profound than your story. Your story matters, right? So you write down, I found life. Your story matters to Jesus. Your story will matter to your friends. This is your opportunity to invest in people. Now listen, this tracker thing, not a tracker, sorry. This key finder is not for you. I know that, you're going, oh man, I was wanting one of those things. That's pretty awesome. And they are awesome. If you want to buy one, we've got about 50 of them for sale at the connection table. And they'll ring up. I think they're $7, okay? But this is an investment that we're making in you, investing and inviting. So what we want you to do is we want you to take this card and your story. You don't have to go in depth with it. You don't have to say, hey, I found life, I found forgiveness. You don't have to tell your whole life story about it. You can just say, listen, hey, this is great. In fact, I've got this story I wanted to share with you. It was pretty powerful, because it was one of our leaders took this stuff. We did this kind of a little bit early with a couple of test cases, and we gave it to a few of our core leaders, about 15 people, and we asked them, hey, would you do me a favor and just and go out and try this out for us? Tell us what it feels like. And so we gave them the card, we gave them the key finder thing. That's when we found out that tracker is really a bad word. And one of our leaders, Tony, said that he thought of a specific person in his office, and he went down to see if she was in, and she wasn't there. And later on that day, she wound up in his office, and he said, hey, you're not in trouble, don't worry about it, but come in for a minute. And he gave it to her. He says, hey, we're doing this thing at church, and here's my story, and we're doing a series called I Found, and this is what I found at Journey, and I want you to have this thing, and this will help you find your keys when you lose them. We're not tracking you. It doesn't go off every time you walk into a bar or something. Like, this is just for you to find your keys when you lose them. And I just want you to consider in meeting me at Journey, and I'll meet you in the parking lot, and I'll make it easy on you. And we'll walk into church together, and I would love for you to attend Easter service with me. And that person responded really favorably. He said in the email, I don't know if she'll wind up coming with me or not, but I made the investment. That's what matters. It's not so much that you get a successful return. We detach from the outcomes. The outcomes are not ours to do. It's the harvest that isn't ours. It's our responsibility to cast seed and care for people. So here's the question. You know someone who's lost. You know someone who's been hurt. You know somebody who's distant from God, who kind of bailed on this whole faith thing a while back. Maybe it was something that you could have helped. Maybe it was something somebody else could have helped. Maybe it was something nobody could have helped. But this can help. This is a big deal. So I want you to put those things back in the envelope. I don't want to see them on your key ring. I want you to invest those in people. Somebody you know, an uncle, a brother, a friend, a person at work, a guy on the line, the person you play golf with, whatever. Give them that. Walk through a little bit of your story and say, hey, I found this. Why don't you come and see what you find at Journey? This is a huge opportunity. Last year we had 850 people at Journey Church on Easter. I'd love, and I'm hesitant about numbers, I really am, but I'd love to see us closer to 1,000 people. I think it's a possibility, but that is going to require almost every couple or every family in this room bringing somebody with them. If we're gonna see that kind of rejoicing over the people who need rescue returning to Jesus, we're going to have to get serious about this thing. There's gonna have to be a sense of urgency. So let me just do this with you, okay? Take that card. You got your stuff written out on it. I want you to put it all back in there for me and hold it up in the air. And I'd like to pray consecration over this. Let's pray this together. Jesus, these are just pieces of paper and plastic and circuitry, and it's really junk. But Jesus, we know that because you are in this, that they are of great value. So Jesus, we consecrate every single one of these items in our hands, our stories behind them, all those things. We give them to you. And we just ask that your Holy Spirit would work through the conversations. We're thinking of the people that are in our minds, the people at work, the people in our family, the friends, the guys we know from the neighborhood. But we just lift them to you, and God, we ask that your Holy Spirit would go before us. They would go before us and begin to soften hearts, that we ask for boldness to be able to speak the truth to people. Jesus, we just give you these items. They're really nothing. And we look forward to the rejoicing that will happen over the people that we will reach who are in need of rescue. Jesus, I found life in you. Help us to find others who need to find life in you. We ask that in your name and for your glory. Amen.